going live.
Right now?
Yes, you are live.
All right.
Just 1 second. I'm just checking out if we are live or not. Yes. Yes, we are live. Yeah. Hi everyone. Today I am with the Peter, who is the author of ultimate performance for the bubble book. Sorry, just I sorry, I'm just repeating. Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I am with the Peter, who is the author of the ultimate performance book on bubble. He's a great book. He's a ultimate performance for the bubble. He have written a great book on the bubble. Today we will ask him how he started in the bubble, and how he started in the no-code tools, what he exactly right now doing it, and all. So welcome, Peter. How are you?
Thank you. I'm pretty good. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So my very first question is how you got started in the no-code tools, or bubble.io is your first tool, or you typically you tried a lot of tool and then come on the bubble?
No, Bubble was the first one for me. It was back in 2016. Compared to a lot of users today, I was a pretty early adopter, but still Bubble has been, in development since 2011, if I'm not mistaken. So it had been around for a while when I found it. And just like I think most Bubble users, I was working as a consultant at the time with startups mostly, and with finding new ways for companies to be more efficient. So I was helping them with choosing the right software, connecting those software solutions and stuff to make their business more efficient, basically. And I stumbled upon Bubble when I was looking for a way to set up a pretty simple, basic app. And I was kind of blown away really from the first minute of it when I tried to draw on the canvas, and I realized that I could save things in the database and fetch it later and do all of these things without writing a single line of code. So my entry into Bubble has really been more about keeping my consulting business going and helping companies streamline their processes. And Bubble has kind of become a hub for that. So, you can connect all these services together and, even build full systems like a CRM or a inventory management, whatever you need for your specific business. You can build that in Bubble, which is something that small businesses could never have afforded with regular coding, right? So I think that kind of changed the world for me. It changed the world for several of my clients. And, my business has kind of grown into becoming almost 100% Bubble after these years. So,
Great. So, you were like a programmer, or you are already into coding, or you already running a consulting agency, hiring a freelancer who is writing a code for a client, or what exactly was the scenario?
Yeah, okay. I have, for those who don't know me, I have a bit of a confusing background because my background is in marketing. This is where I started out. So I came into marketing from school at the time, just before online marketing took off. So it was before Google Analytics. It was before all of these other analytics packages. It was before Google Ads ever existed, right? So right when I left school, these things started to kind of bloom and started to grow and reached my country as well. So I got into that, started a company while I was a student. We had some success working with marketing, and we were kind of surprised that the demand grew so quickly. So we were kind of a bunch of students, trying to build a small company, and it grew and became quite big in a short span of time. And we had the chance to learn this stuff from the get-go, understanding that, it used to be magazine ads. You printed something in a magazine, you ran a commercial on TV, all of these offline things, right? And you had ways of measuring how they worked, but you didn't get the numbers specifically. You couldn't literally have that analytical approach. So that changed when it all moved online. And then through the next 5, 6, 7 years, I just happened to move kind of away from the marketing side and more over to the product side. And I just discovered that I love building products, and that being tech products, right? Software. So, I have both the marketing side of it and I have the product side of it. I'm not a developer myself. So, if you relate it to Bubble, I can't build you a plugin, for example. I have a exam it's not called exam. I had JavaScript at school years ago, right? So I can speak the language. If I speak to a developer, I'll understand what he or she says, but I can't really code well myself. And yeah, it was, as I said, when I found Bubble that I really started getting into the product and not talking to a team of developers, but really started to building things myself and building things with a team. Yeah, so that was a short story how I got here.
Okay. So while like you started working like using Bubble in 2015, right?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah. So like what, like at that time Bubble was a like very small team, and they, I think, have a like a very different product that is they have right now, but on the same line of course. What is like working initial days like with the Bubble team? Are you directly talking to their like developers, or like you are like normally like today you are like figuring out the platform, asking, putting question in the Bubble forum, or like there's a Discord or like Slack group where you just like messaging their team? What exactly that look like in initial days of the Bubble?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we're still seeing that today. But back at that time, one of the things that made me just completely confused was that I was opening up Bubble. I was starting to play around in the editor, and a week passed and 2 weeks passed, and I was starting to get into it and learn it, right? And every time I hit some sort of problem, I started Googling it, right? Like everyone else, I would Google, how do you do this in Bubble? And I couldn't find anything. It was just the strangest thing. I was looking at this platform, which was, in my view, obviously revolutionary, right? It was, you could see, from the beginning that it was going to change the internet. And I couldn't find anything. There was not a single page dedicated to this platform. And of course, like many people, I found the forum, which I became quite active. I started asking questions, and then as I learned, I started answering questions as well. And two things that blew me away there was really the quality of the community there, just how helpful people were. And, the tone of the conversation was just always positive, helpful, great. I've been to some toxic forums in my life, and this was just the opposite. Everyone was just friendly. But, after, again, a few weeks passed, and I started seeing, okay, I got a response from someone at Bubble now for this question that I posted. It was just a technical thing. And it turns out it was the founder, right? It was like, it was the CEO who answered. Yeah. And the crazy thing is that Bubble has grown immensely since then. The product hasn't changed that much. It's the quality is higher, it's faster, it's all of that, but it looks the same and it behaves more or less the same. But they still do that, which is crazy. They have hundreds of thousands of users now, and still, they have, of course, a bigger support team, but still the CEO and the tech team and the leaders of the tech team are still active in the communities, talking to users. If they're working on a new part of the platform, like the new responsive engine that's coming out soon, they'll invite us into it, right? They'll invite the users, and especially users that they know that been around for a while, and they ask, what do you think? Is this working the way it's supposed to? Is it good? Is it bad? What do you like? What you don't like? And I've heard some interviews with the founders of Bubble, and I can't say really if it was intentional or not. I think they were a bit surprised themselves, but they have managed to create an amazing community around this, and I think definitely this is a huge part of their success.
Great. Okay, tell me one more thing. Like, why you stick to the like Bubble? I'm definitely sure at the time of like when you started using a Bubble, and when you're frustrating, you are not getting your queries answer, or like platform is somewhat buggy. Have you tried like searching another tool? Okay, let's try another tool which is similar, or you are not able to find any other tool similar to Bubble. Like, why you stick so long? Because like 6 year, even for a single programming language, it's too like I feel like it's too much, uh, and not from the point of view of like building application, but because when you do a visual development, you feel like okay, I already done. This thing I already done. Then you feel like oh, this is become repetitive. What like keeps you like attached with the bubble and keep building on the product uh, on the bubble?
A couple of reasons, I guess. The first answer to this is that I don't only use Bubble, I use other tools as well. And often I use them together with Bubble, right? So whether they're APIs or other kinds of software, something like Airtable. So I do use other solutions as well. But the philosophy for me really in this is that I'd rather be really good at Bubble than okay at 5 different products, right? So Bubble is what I know best. It's a platform I'm pretty confident in, and yeah, so it has been mostly able to solve my problems, and I think I also kind of filter my projects on that premise. Can it be built in Bubble? And it happens, I won't say all the time, but it happens sometimes that I get a project from a client who wants to build something, and I'll tell him that I don't think Bubble is the right platform for this. It's not going to fulfill your needs, and I'm not confident enough in other platforms to help you out here. So I'll send him on his way, and I think that's the right thing to do. But really, for me, also is just that, as I said from day one, I've just been endlessly fascinated with this platform, and really I have a lot of faith in the Bubble team and the platform to become the dominant player in the no code universe, right? And the investment that came this summer, the 100 million that was invested in Bubble, it kind of proves this, right? That there's a lot of eyes watching this platform right now, and I haven't thoroughly reviewed every single one, but I do feel that Bubble is probably going to come out on top of this. So that's another one. I kind of put my eggs in that basket because I really believe in them.
Okay. So like my question like next is like you are like building businesses like from very beginning, from the school, and where you are building a company along with your friends and known person. How much you like grown from there to now, like while hiring a freelancer or like while hiring or like partnering with the different shareholder, like what do you think what is the process like in the like past, or what is the process right now, like if someone wants to work with you as a freelancer or like a full-time developer as a visual developer, what is the quality you look like, and what was like when you started in the like bubble, and what was the quality at that time you are looking, and how you're finding a freelancer? Are you like finding a team player from the bubble forum or like community? Since now community has grown too much, you can easily find a lot of developer. I'm definitely sure in the initial days you are finding quite difficult to hire finding a good bubble developer.
Mm. I think that there are several questions in there. I would say, so let's go for you know, what kind of people do I work with and hire as a freelancer or whatever. So uh, I think one of the beautiful things about Bubble is that you don't need to you don't have to choose a specific education to work with Bubble. So you don't need to be a software engineer to work with Bubble. And this is really good for the client in some specific way. And that is really that you can get a person who has experience doing something else. So for me personally, I think it was a strength for me that I have both a marketing and a product background, because I've worked with a range of different software, right? So if you describe some kind of software that you need, it's very likely that I've worked with something similar in the past, so I can understand that side of it. And I've worked consulting businesses for so long that starting a company is not a big mystery to me. I know how that works, and I know the challenges you're likely to run into, and a lot of the time I can predict how you're going to grow and what you should do to keep growing and all of that. So For me, I'm still consider myself, I don't call myself really a bubble developer. I still call myself a consultant. But over time, I've built a network of people who can bring a bubble app to life pretty quickly. And I think with the business experience that we bring into it, I think it's likely that you'll be happy with what we're building. So I would say that bubble developers don't need to be engineers, and that's in this case is a good thing because it means they can bring all other sorts of experiences into the mix, which is a good thing, right? So one of the challenges of, I've been asked this sometimes, does no code replace code? And I don't think it does at all. They're just two different ways of creating something. And I think one of the problems that I've had in the past when you work with, you have kind of this project owner, which is the person who wants to build the project, and you have the project manager, who is the one who actually manages it. And then you have, maybe a tech lead, you have developers, you have designers, you have all of these. And, in Norway, we have something called the whispering game, which is, a bunch of kids, they stand in line, they whisper something to each other, and it changes along the way. And when the last person hears it, it's something completely different and everyone laughs, right? And I think the same happens in software development sometimes, that the project manager has this great, fantastic idea, and then it travels through different stages or persons along the way. And then, when it finally reaches the developer, it's something completely different than what this guy was thinking. So, the direct contact with the product that a bubble developer has means that it's going to be built more or less exactly as you planned, right? So the project owner, the first person in this case, could be the one building it, right? So, and it's gonna affect the outcome because it's never going to be different from what you imagined.
Yeah. Okay. There is one question that I think missed. How you hire the freelancers, like bubble developers? Like you go on the, right now it is easy. Like what is like back in the 2015, 16, 17, 18, like before 2019, what was like to hire the bubble? How you go? What was the process look like?
People probably think it's been more of a hiring process than it actually has, because I haven't really gone through job interviews and cases and present 3 apps that you made. It hasn't really been like that, because again, this community is so good that you start to recognize some users who are really good at what they do. So if I need a plugin developed for some project, it needs to do something specific, I know who to talk to, right? But I'm not his only client by any means, or she. So that person will, do that job for me, maybe spend 30 hours in a month, or maybe spend 2 hours in a month. So I think it's more about network, really, because they don't work for me full time mostly. Although if we have projects going and I need their experience, then sure, they can work for me full time. But they're still just sending me invoices. They're not really employed by me full time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now come to your book. So everyone who is like watching this, Peter has written a great book on the bubble performance. Like he put like a lot of effort on how you should maintain your database, how should you option set, when your app is complex, what you should avoid, what you should use, and when you're calling APIs, what you should like keep aware of, so that your whole app is not like slow. So I will definitely ask everyone to go. I will put a link in the description, like, or you can just search on the Google ultimate performance book on bubble.io. The first link will be the Peter link. Go check. Okay, now come. Why you like thinking? Why you started writing a book? It's your own problem, or like you think okay, there's a good opportunity out there. Most of the like bubble is growing too much. I should write something so that most of the people will use, or it's like your own problem. You like okay, how like for the new project, how should I like maintain a database? How should go about the option set? Why like you think of the writing a book?
It was more than one reason, I think. One was that I started to recognize that, okay, we have this great platform and we have this great community, but we haven't really developed best practices yet. And best practices are pretty important. So, when you have people going to software engineering school, computer science for years, they don't only learn the code, right? They learn a lot of other stuff. How to organize the work and how to work together in a team, how to work in a way that makes your app secure, performant, all of this. You learn a lot of other stuff that's not related to code directly. And most of the people who come into Bubble, they don't have this experience. They don't realize, if they're putting immense pressure on the server somehow, or they're leaving gaping security holes, or stuff like this. They really have to be told, and I can't blame them, right? So why would they know, right? When you come from some different background, you don't know stuff like that. So for me, it was that we need some best practices here. We need to start establishing those. And for me, the book is a step in that direction for the community, I hope, but it's certainly not the final step. I am going to develop as or evolve as a developer. I'm probably going to make changes to the book, and in a year someone might write a book that's better than mine, or a lot better than mine, for all I know, right? So I think it's kind of an evolution, and I wanted to join the journey that Bubble has and try to contribute something. Second thing is, at the time, it's not as much now, but at the time in the forum, there were a lot of complaints about Bubble's performance. So people thought that Bubble was slow, and Bubble is not perfect. It does perform slowly sometimes, and it keeps improving, not in big steps, but in micro steps, right? So this specific thing is a little faster today than it was last week. This little thing is a little faster today. They keep improving. But what I recognized, and what several other forum users recognized, was that in 85% of the cases or something like that, people were slowing down their apps, because they didn't set it up in the right way. So they were kind of giving Bubble a bad rep, and giving all the blame on Bubble. And it turned out it was their own work that was really sabotaging their performance, right? So that was kind of, that was a motivation for me, I'll admit, to kind of, okay, I want to end this conversation now, because they were not productive. They were kind of, I won't say toxic, but they were really dragging down the forum a little bit, because people were angry that they've spent 3 months setting up an app and they think it doesn't perform well. And I understand them perfectly well. It's their startup, right? It has a lot of value in it. They have invested a lot of time and maybe even money in it. And then they see, oh, it doesn't perform. I would be angry too, right? So, and I probably was at some point, when I started learning Bubble. And again, Bubble is not perfect. You're gonna hit a roof sometimes, depending on how your project looks. But a lot of the time, yeah, it's your own fault, basically. And one of the things I say in your book, as you may remember from reading it, is that you have to be open to the possibility that your first app is not going to be as good as you hope, because you're still learning Bubble. So Bubble does, I think the learning curve, this goes back to our freelance question also, is that you have kind of this is the time you've spent in Bubble, and this is your confidence. And I think the confidence level in Bubble rises very fast, because you can see results so fast. Instantly. But the actual skill level is still around here, right? Yeah. So people, they work in Bubble for 2 weeks, maybe they attend a boot camp or something like that, and they learned a lot. They set up their app, and then it becomes slow because they weren't as experienced as they thought they were. And yeah, so this, I try to rectify that with the book, to teach people that there's a lot you can do to make your app faster. And if you are guessing why it's slow and you're new to Bubble, you're probably not guessing right. You're probably unaware of what actually is causing the slowdown.
Yeah. So at that graph you just told me right now, so I am the same situation. My Bubble skill is here, my confidence is here. So I'm right now, I am thinking, okay, you got any problem, I can solve it by the Bubble. So I'm just challenging myself, like building actual product, deep diving into more, talking to more people, like what is your problem? Because I'm more like a guy who just love to solve the problem rather than own problem. Like I don't love solving my own problem, but I just love the solving others people problem. So that is the way. So yeah. Okay, how many copies have been sold, if you can answer?
Oh,
You tweeted like on 24 September, it's 800.
yeah.
And
So let me check. I haven't actually checked. So all time I'm selling through Gumroad. So they have this app where I can check it on the fly. Okay, that didn't work with the background,
yeah.
but so it's 948 sales as of now. So yeah,
Oh,
there has been some interest in it. I was not sure at all if it was going to sell anything when I released it. So I was pretty humble when I put it out on the market. But yeah, it has been some interest, and people have given me a lot of great feedback, a lot of great advice on, this could be clearer. I think you're forgetting about this. I disagree with this, which helped me set up, the version 2, which I released in May or something like that. So there may be a third revision at some point, but yeah, it's been a great process.
guys, go like purchase it. There's only 55 books are pending to cross the mark of 1000. Go and purchase. And okay, so Bumble is also releasing a new responsive editor. Are you planning something updating book after like reading responsive editors?
Maybe I
Okay.
haven't really planned that far ahead. So, I think there are some players out there who are already covering the responsiveness and the design part very well.
Yeah.
Uh, I know how to use the responsive engine, but I don't really consider myself a great designer. So I'm not sure I should teach that. But from the technical standpoint, if I feel that there is a market for teaching that in a book form, maybe, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so have you tried a new responsive? You must got a like a access of new responsive editor.
I've tried it, but it's quite some time ago actually, and I think they made some major revisions to it since then. So a lot of people are trying it as we speak, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
I'm actually holding back a little bit. So I was in a Slack channel with the Bubble team earlier, where I got to see kind of a preview of it. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. I think from a performance perspective, also, it's going to help a lot because they're using CSS in a much more efficient way in this version than they were in the last one. There's going to be a bit of a learning curve. So people have to kind of understand CSS and the box model a bit more. But I think I don't think it's more difficult than the last version. I just think
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It
different.
is
So
like
you,
it is at the end of the visual development. I don't feel like it is going to difficult
mm, no,
that
I
much.
think it's more flexible, right? So you have more control over where things lie in a height perspective, not just the width and all of that. So yeah, I think it's definitely an improvement from what I've seen. But there are people who know the new responsive engine better than I do at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like complete assumption based question. Since Bubble.io has recently got a funding of $100 million, and you have working from so long, 6 years, what do you think where Bubble.io should more invest their money or like more invest their resources uh, into, and how like Bubble.io should approach this problem like reaches to more people, like
Mm,
like distribution of the Bubble.io. So like
yeah.
what is your view on that?
Hmm. That's a good question. This is probably a boring answer, but I'm not sure I have a view, to be honest. I think they're doing a very good job. I don't know their long-term strategy intimately, obviously, but I can see kind of in what direction they're moving by looking at, okay, what kind of people are they hiring, what seems to be their strategy, and yeah, they're very focused on startups still and focused on getting new users on board and teaching them. They're investing a lot in educational material. This is one of the places where maybe I don't agree. I maybe that should be left up to the community instead of spending internal resources on building training videos and all of that. Then again, they have some strategy with it, which I don't know. So maybe it's the right thing anyway. So I'm hoping, of course, from my own perspective, that as much as possible of this investment goes into keep building the platform, add new features, improve the performance. I'm hoping that we can get global servers so that we don't all rely on servers in the US, even if you're not on the dedicated plan. Those are things I'm hoping for, and I'm sure they will come. So mostly I'm thinking, I really, really hope, and at this point I think that the $100 million doesn't change them too much, right? So I think they are a company who their history has really proven this far that they value their independence very much. They bootstrapped for, what is it, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, which is
10 years. 2011,
10
I
years,
think.
yeah, maybe it was, yeah, okay. So that's mind-blowing on its own, right? To just sit around and believe in your product. They started making some money on it pretty early on, but still, working that way for so long is pretty impressive, right? So, and it says something about the founders. So for me, I'm not concerned about them growing too fast and getting that $100 million. I think that's probably a very, very good thing. I would be more concerned if they were acquired by another company or something like that, because that has a bigger risk of changing the culture and shaping the strategy too much. So no, I'm very happy for them. I'm happy for myself since I'm a user of their platform. I think it's great news, and I look forward to what it can bring us all. Then again, to give my perspective on the timeline here, again, I've worked with startups, and some of them have gotten big investment rounds. And what people need to realize is that things take time, right? So if you get $100 million, yes, you're going to start spending it right away. But hiring is slow, and building a complex product like Bubble is slow. So I don't expect we will see huge changes within the first year. It's great news for the next 5 years, but it's probably not going to change things that much in the next 12 months.
I think so when you got a funding, or like, so for example, any company announced they got a funding of $100 million today. So I think they got a that 100 million rupees in their bank account over the time, not on the very first day when they launch. So I think at a 6 month, 8 month, or depend upon the deal they crack with the investors. So how they are going to pay that, because when you go in the details, I'm not talking about the Bubble, but generally, like, they added some custom software development fees also in that funding, or they add some amount of uh, like investing fees, sort of like they will you have to, if you want to create a website, you have to go this website, this company, then only we will release that type of fund. So there's a lot of do this, do and don't, basically, in the funding round. It is not straightforward. Yeah. So like, before going forward, we got some like a comment on like some from people. There's a one guy, Max. He said, brought your book yesterday. Thanks, Mac. There's one more guy, Rico. Because said ki the new responsive engine adds 10x the fun to designing. Yeah. Just the fact that you can move a whole section up and down by clicking one button in revolutionary. Okay. Okay. So there is a in the new responsive editor. So there is a like complete button. You can move up and down a complete section in just a click on one button. That is, I think, good thing. Yeah. Yeah, guys. If you have any question, just comment it out. I will ask Peter. And okay. So moving forward. So now talk about the like my favorite part, basically, where you talk to the startup owner, like consultancy or agencies. Okay, that is your problem. I can build your app, but I will do in a no code. How they react it, and what their first impression is, or they do not. But most of them are not worried about how, like, what programming language you are using or not. They need just a solution, final solution.
Well, it has changed a lot over these years, because in the beginning I would have to really sell Bubble. I would have to go out and say, okay, I see you have this project. Are you willing to put some faith in a new platform? In that case, I have this one, right? And we would I would surprise them with a lower budget than they were used to. I would surprise them by saying, okay, we can slash the development time from 6 months to 1 month. And it was still I'd say it was a pretty tough sell really in the beginning, because first of all, Bubble is a startup. It's not Microsoft. It's not Amazon. It's not something like that. It's a startup. So that fact combined with the fact that they host the app for you, naturally people were seeing a risk there that, if something happens to them, then our app would go down. Some clients were really joining me in this, and I guess they trusted me to kind of make that decision for them, that I would say, let's try it. I believe this company will be around. I believe they will change how the internet works. You can be an early adopter, and it will give you tech resources that you will not have access to if you don't do this, right? So they put their faith in me. I think they've been very happy with the results, and they're suddenly finding themselves in a situation where they can use technology in a completely different way. So they have some sort of problem. I need to know what employee X is doing at this point, let's say, and we can actually create software for them that keeps track of it, right? And we can do that in a week or 3 weeks, something like that. It doesn't cost that much. So I think, some of the clients that I was working on very early on that were nervous to go into the platform, they have since become huge proponents, right? But the incoming client stream right now is people who are very much familiar with what this is, and they're really just looking for someone to either teach them or to build it for them. So yeah, the amount of attention it has gotten and the reputation it has reached is just completely different in just these years.
Okay, perfect. Okay, same question, like along with the same line. Just one second. Yeah, like what is the selling point for the startup? Apart from the money, they are like, I am definitely they can reduce their budget will be very low compared to when you develop your app in the coding language. Like cost is there, but apart from cost, what is the selling point for the startups? Like they are like, okay, like go ahead. For someone who don't know about the no code, for someone who about the no code and bubble and all, then they're pretty easy to sell, I personally feel, because they already understand the, okay, you can trust the platform. And so what is the selling point for the startup, or like companies, big companies and all?
Yeah, so I think those are probably different from an existing small or medium company, or even a big company, and a complete startup. Because for a startup, the challenge is not usually, or in some cases, but in many cases, the challenge is really how can I get this built at all? So it's either bubble or nothing in a lot of cases, right? Because investors traditionally, they don't buy an idea, they buy a product that's already has some traction, right? So for a startup, bubble is sometimes the only way in, really. So that's kind of the basic thing for those who are really starting out, and they don't have tech experience. Bubble can make that possible for them. For a small or medium-sized business, or even a big business, the selling point is really, if I can give you the same product like 70% cheaper, 80% faster, why would you not do that, right? So
Yeah.
yes, you're taking a risk. I'm bringing all the data up on the table and saying, okay, we can actually do this. The numbers speak for themselves. The budget will be drastically reduced, and you will have the product a lot earlier. Would you like that? And there are perfectly valid reasons to say no, because maybe you don't want to bind yourself to being hosted on Bubble, for example. There are lots of good reasons to do that. But in many cases, the answer is pretty straightforward. It's like, yes, well, yeah, I would like to save that money. And yes, I would like to have the product months earlier. So I don't think it needs to be made more complex than that. It's just a much faster way of developing and a much cheaper way of developing. And knowing that, you can look at the pros and cons in terms of, binding yourself to a platform for all the future, right? So, but in many cases, both for startups and for other companies, it's often about evaluating an idea, right? So they can see, we don't mind getting, binding ourselves to Bubble because we're testing an idea. And when they get validation for that idea and they want to take it one step further, in many cases, they'll just say, well, Bubble has been stable. We think it's going to be around for a while, especially after this huge investment round. Let's just keep building it in Bubble. And there's often no reason not to do that. But in other cases, let's say you need a really good native mobile app, for example, where Bubble sometimes still falls a bit short, in my opinion. They might say, okay, we got the validation, we got some users on board, we've tested this. Now let's rebuild it in some other framework, which works better on Android and iPhone, right? So, yeah, I think depending on what you need, if you're willing to stick with Bubble for the time period in which you need it, then yeah, I think the answer is pretty easy, actually.
Just 1 second. Like my laptop battery is gone. Just yeah. Okay. That's great. So I have a same question along with these line also. When you where okay, before going this question, so have you talked to a bubble team or something? Is there any plan or any vision to let the user download the code or something, or they are not because new no code tools are coming up and they let you download the code and you can build application and download a code and host your own server and all.
Well, I don't have any special insight. They don't tell me. But if my personal guess is that no, I don't think they will make that possible, because just the way their business is built is really on this lock-in, and I don't think that's cynical at all. I just think because I think no code is not really a great way to describe what they're doing. And I think the founders have mentioned this in interviews earlier, that no code is kind of misleading because it doesn't just replace code, right? It takes care of the hosting, it takes care of the security in many ways. It takes care of publishing new versions of your app. There's just a huge range of things that they do that's not really related to code. So if you ask, does Bubble replace a coder? Yeah, it does, but it replaces all of these other jobs as well, right? So it replaces a designer and a coder and a database engineer and all of these different things. So, the thing that makes Bubble work so well is that people who come into using it are usually completely unaware just how much this platform takes care of for you, right? So they think that they're replacing code, but they're really replacing all sorts of things that they're completely unaware of because they don't have an engineering background. So when I look at Bubble's database, as a new user, I just say data types with fields, they're saved. Of course they are, right? They don't realize that this actually takes a huge effort to set up if you're creating an app from scratch in some other framework. So yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they will change that model because their customers rely on them being handheld all the way. Basically, they did not set out to create a no-code platform. They set out to create a platform that allows anyone to build and publish an app from A to Z, right? And I think they've succeeded pretty well in that.
Yeah. Okay. One more thing. What do you think? What is the not so good use case for the bubble? So, is there any particular use case you should not use a bubble? You should go with the other tool, other no-code tool, or the coding.
Well, you have to see what Bubble is. Some people who don't know exactly what it is, they have some expectations that don't really match with what Bubble does. So the first thing is that you're not really building new technology with Bubble, right? So if you are building, you want to build an online photo editor with 300 different filters, you're going to need some coding in there, right? Bubble is not going to do that for you. And if you're building in the new PlayStation hit, a 3D game or an indie game or something like that. Bubble is probably not the right platform for that either. Also, as I said, it's not great on mobile. It's not horrible. You can port it through WebView solutions, but it's still, you can kind of feel that it's not a native application, even though some of these web wrappers, they include a lot of different native features. Still, it doesn't really feel like a native app, and it isn't. So I think Bubble is okay for mobile apps, but it's not fantastic. It still has some work to do on that part. So you have to understand that Bubble is a way to work with a database, to visualize a database on the screen and allow users to read and write and change things in the database. Then again, that's what most apps do, right? Facebook is just a database too, right? And LinkedIn is just a database. It's just an appealing way of looking at it. They present it in a good way, and this you can do with Bubble. So I wouldn't say Bubble is bad at anything. It's just not the right tool for every job in the world, right?
Right. Okay. So I have like a couple of technical questions related to Bubble. I know I told you like I will not go in the like technical side, but there's like two like question, some of mine and some of the questions I got from the different forums. Sure. And so one is like, is there a Bubble in the Bubble? Is there any way to schedule a daily operation or like monthly operation, something like in the backend workflow? I can, for example, I want a daily report. How many users are there? How many new signups are in the platform? Or like quarterly reports, like every 3 months. Is there any option to set up in the backend workflow or like any other way?
So just let me confirm that I got your question right. So you're asking if it's possible to run a workflow at a set interval, for example, once per month or once per 3 months, something like that. Is that the question? Yeah. Okay. So, well, you have two options to do that, really, or three. You can, of course, schedule them manually, but that's not a great option. So I assume you mean automatically, right?
Yeah.
So you have a feature that's kind of deprecated in my view right now, which is, I'm not even sure what it's called anymore. It's kind of repeating workflows, which I think it even requires a higher plan, maybe even the professional plan, to schedule a workflow that is then set to run weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. I think on the higher plans, you can set it to daily, but it's really, there's no reason to use this anymore because you have access to recursive workflows now. And what I mean by access is that in the past, Bubble didn't allow for a workflow to schedule itself. So I'm talking about backend workflows now.
Yeah.
So they blocked this. It wasn't possible to do this. And I'm guessing the reason for that is that if you allow us a workflow to schedule itself, you can start this eternal loop, right? And if unexperienced Bubble developers come into this and they try this out and 250 different apps set up eternal loops, these servers will start struggling, right?
Yeah, completely.
So I think that they've gotten a lot better at isolating performance to one app. So basically, when you're on the shared server, which most Bubble apps are, because the dedicated is pretty expensive, you have a certain portion of the server's total capacity, which is what you're seeing. You can boost it, you can buy more units, all of that. That means they're not moving you to another computer, to just allowing that computer to give you more resources, right? So when they open up for this, it's probably because they were able to isolate each app and its performance in a better way. So if you set up a workflow that loops itself with an incredibly heavy database operation, you will only crash your own app. You will not crash anyone else's. It's just your capacity will go through the roof. The app will start timing out and everyone else's app is untouched. Yeah. I think this is what happened behind the scenes, which allowed Bubble finally to open up for recursive workflows. That was just a short history lesson. So what is the recursive workflow? Well, as I said, it's one that schedules itself once it's over. So it's basically a loop, right? So for those who come from a programming background, it's a loop. That's it. No more fancy than that. So the beautiful thing about this, that if you have scheduled an API workflow or a backend workflow, you know that you can schedule it at the current date time, but you can also schedule it at any other time, right? The current date time plus 1 minute, 1 month, 1 year, if you want to. And you can, of course, do this when it reschedules itself also. So if you have a workflow running, it performs some sort of operation. The last step of that workflow is that it schedules itself once again. You can do that immediately, or you could do it in 1 second, or you can do it in a year. So that would be, recursive workflows. And I have a guide on this on my website. It's probably not necessary to go through the steps here and now, but I have a couple of guides on recursive workflows on my website, which should help you along if you're not sure what they are. So that's amlysolutions.com and recursive workflows. That would, I don't see any reason to do it any other way than that if you need to perform some sort of operation on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. I have one more question I got from the Slack, one of the group. Let me just quickly find it. Yeah, he said, I would like to make a question about database structure in Bubble. Since I know Peter has a lot of experience with that, yeah. I have a client that has a table with a lot of fields and related data types. It's a quite lengthy question, I think. I just uh, I just share on the screen, then only you can read it. I just
I'm sorry, are you sending it to me?
yeah, I'm just sending to you, or I'm just sharing my screen. Yes. Yeah, this is the question.
Okay.
You can see my screen, or I will zoom it.
Yes, I can see it from Christian, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I have a client that has a table data type with a lot of fields and related data types. The main table is projects and has relations to users, invoices, payments, conversations, files, etc. All of these are data types, so all of these fields are lists. I thought that having so many related fields that are lists was not the best solution. Would it be better, instead of having a list of invoices in the project table, to create a new project invoices table where you just have 2 fields, project and invoice? Yes, you are making yourself clear, I think. So the question is here to set up a new, when you say table, I assume you mean data type,
Yeah.
which contains both of these and kind of linking them together. And yes, that is sometimes necessary. It's a perfectly fine solution. What I would suggest there may be some scenario here that I'm missing, but you have a project, and the way I see this, an invoice could be related to one or several projects. I'm not sure. So I would probably see it the other way around, so that an invoice is linked to a project. So instead of reading a list of invoices on the project that's saved on a project, I would perform a search for invoices that has this project as a parent. So, doing the project invoices table, as you say here, it's usually done if you need to link things together in some other way, but it does require a lot of extra lookups when you display it on the screen, because you have one data type, and then you have to fetch the project, and then you have to fetch the invoice, and this data type links them together. And this will cause slight delays. If you're showing this in a list, you can see some delays in the rendering because it has to look up 3 different things, right? So one of the things I think here that you kind of have to get out of your head with Bubble compared to traditional thinking in databases is that it's perfectly fine to save information more than once if it helps you display it more efficiently. So let's say here that you're looking for, you have a project and you need to know the number of invoices on that project, for example. you can save that as a number, right? So you don't have to search for and count the invoices every time. You save a field on the project data type that's called invoice count, or whatever you want to call it. I may be speaking a bit around the question here because I don't know the scenario exactly, but in general, I don't really like using lists because they're not as secure, because it's very easy to overlook that you're no longer bound by privacy rules. So whereas a search will always hide invoices that you as a user is not supposed to see, if you're using a list, you risk showing invoices that you're not supposed to show. Also, lists are not faster than searches in any meaningful way. If theoretically maybe on a short list that it's faster, but even Bubble themselves have said that there's no difference in it. So I just think searches they're more secure. You have more control over the filtering, and also lists is something that you have to keep up, right? You have to maintain them somehow. So if these are different search results, an invoice rarely gets deleted, I guess, but you have to maintain them, which is not really the best way, I think. So don't be afraid to use searches. Bind your child data types, which is an invoice, for example, to a parent, which is a project, and perform a search for those invoices. Yeah, I hope I got the question right. I'm not sure, but
I think question is answered. Sorry, I got one comment on our live stream. Max says, can it be turned off for the enterprise client to know that the code is not really theirs, in so far as it can only run on their Bumble platform, as opposed to traditional stacks where you can migrate? Yeah, I think you already answered this question. And okay, the next one is Peter, thanks for the explanation of the recursive workflow versus schedule. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Christina just commented out, and I don't know he or she, but thanks, Peter. I hope he or she got their questions answered. Okay. Yeah, Christina says 100% clear. Yeah, Christina got the answer.
Great. I'm glad.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know if you have any question for the Peter. In the meanwhile, go check it out on the website. I'm just opening the website, Unveil website, and also the book that we are talking about. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, this is the website, and you can buy the book. Please go and check it out. And the URL is mlsolutions.com. If I can ask you, what is ML? What is the meaning of ML? Is it someone
it's my name.
Okay.
And it, as far as I know, it doesn't mean anything. In Norwegian, the last part, li, it means hill.
Okay.
I have no idea. So it doesn't mean anything. It's just my name.
So your full name is Peter Emil, or Emil Peter?
Yes, Peter Amli. Yes.
Oh, okay. So go check it out, book, and I will definitely encourage everyone to purchase it. And it's a awesome book. But I just recommend first go on the Bubble, look at the platform, and try to build one app on yourself. Go Google and all. Then after that, you just read this book. Because if you directly jump on this book, you are not you will say, what is this? It is pretty complex, and you already make a complete picture. Bubble is complex, but Bubble is not complex. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I think that's it from my side. Also, we don't get any more question on our comment section. Yeah, Peter, thanks for doing this. If you have anything last to say, like go on.
Not really, except thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure talking to you. And I hope your listeners get something out of this.
Yes, definitely.
Also, if you have questions after this, you think of something, I'm easy to reach on Twitter or on the forum, or you'll find you're able to contact me on my website. So don't be
Yeah.
shy. Just get in touch.
Yeah. Okay. After this live stream, also I will update the description. I will add your Twitter handles and Twitter handle so everyone can reach out to you. And if you have any question related to Bubble, I think Peter is happy to solve it.